Good evening, everyone, and welcome to E2E Network's webinar on how to get your product market fit in AI SaaS with Mr. Thiyagarajan Maruthavanan, better known as Rajan. I'm Uzma and I'll be your host for today. This webinar is brought to you by E2E Networks, India's leading cloud GPU provider. Let me now take a moment to introduce you to our speaker for today, Mr. Rajan. Thiyagarajan Maruthavanan, or Rajan, is a co-founder and managing partner at Uppekha, a SaaS accelerator where he has worked with over 100 early-stage startups to build their SaaS flywheel. He enjoys working with early-stage founders who are building great products, especially Indian founders building global software brands. He roots for them, helps them, and nudges them to perform at their peak. Prior to this, he was a product leader at Intuit and worked on QuickBooks Online in its global market expansion. Now, on to the main event. Rajan, over to you.
So I know a lot of folks may be dialing in from India, and I'm dialing in from SF, which is the cradle of AI. I have one request. I know that it is very late. Thank you, guys. You're dialing in at such a late time. But if I see like an empty thing, even in the morning time, I may also fall asleep. So if I can request all of you to keep your videos on, that'd be great. I know that I'm talking to a live audience, and I will, that way I know that I'm either putting you to sleep where it is already sleep time, or you guys are finding this really useful. So so as much as possible, if you guys can keep your videos on, that'll be fantastic. All right, so what I'll do is I'll share my screen, and Mishika, thanks for that wonderful introduction. Let me actually share my screen, and let me know if the screen is visible, guys.
It's visible.
So awesome. So one of the things that I spend a lot of time on is working with early stage startups and helping them in their 0 to 1 journey and helping them get to product market fit. Mishika said, I work and run a SaaS accelerator, and this has been my day job for the last 6 years. Work with about 165 companies, over 45 companies that are building in AI. And these are some thoughts that I'm going to share from my observation as how I see companies doing this. And I've also had the vantage point of looking at companies in SF going through this journey. So some of the things I'm going to share is based on our experiences of how these companies are navigating that journey. And if you are in that journey, you will resonate with it. Some of it, if all people who are further along and people who are still getting there, hopefully you will take a thing or two that you can apply on your startup, maybe even tomorrow morning, right? So that's the objective of this particular session. With that, let's dive in. What I wanted to do is it's about 1.5 hours blogged. I may spend about 45 minutes talking through you a framework, which I call as the crawl, walk, run way of getting to product market fit in AI SaaS. And then we can jump into questions, discussions, and maybe even some deep dive if anybody wants to share their specific case and see how we can solve a specific problem if anybody in the audience have. So first, let's focus on the framework on how to think about this. So let's start with product market fit, right? Everyone has their own definition of product market fit. And you would hear people say things like, oh, it is that concept. It's a very nebulous concept, right? It is like something that you can define by saying this is not that and that is not this. One of the things that I can tell you from my own experience of product market fit is it is a feeling for sure, but the feeling is in the following way. It feels as if you are going down a mountain. People talk about progress and you need to do execution in startup. You can actually keep yourself busy. You can do a lot of things, but if you're not going in the right direction, then it will feel like you are moving a boulder up the mountain. That is how hard it will feel. But folks who have had experienced product market fit, it will feel like you're moving down the mountain where you put 1 unit of progress and then 1 unit of effort and 10 unit of progress happens. But when you don't have the direction right, you can put 10 unit of effort and then there will be 1 unit of progress. If you're building an enterprise company, if you're building an applications company, I'm not talking as much about consumer, but I'm saying that, something where there is direct user payment that is happening. In that case, the rough evidence that I would say is that if you are having and tracking a pipeline, if you are doing a little bit of marketing, and if you have a strong pipeline of people that are willing to come and talk to you, even if it may sound wrong initially, but you have like a strong lead pipeline, that combined with the churn that you're tracking of the customers that you have, if that is less than churn is less than 5% and the pipeline is very, very strong, then I would say that that is a rule of thumb indicator for me that there is product market fit, right? And the journey of finding a product market fit is, for all the people who enjoy math, I'd say that it's more like vector and not really scalar, which means that it is not about speed, it is also about the direction. You can run as fast as you can, but if you're running in the opposite direction, it is not going to matter. And if you know that the churn is less than 5%, then you know that the direction is right. So the broader, more tangible way I would like to sort of define the product market fit is that there are 4 parts, right? The 4 questions to ask. The first one is, how do customers find you? Right? Either you find them or customers come and reach out to you. How does that happen? Right? That's the first part of the question. And from there you say, okay, the customers have multiple choices to pick from. What is the reason that they will pick you over the other alternatives? And you have clear evidence, you have clear demonstration for that. And then the third part of the question is that what will make them happy, so happy that they're going to go and talk about you to many other people that they know. And then the fourth part, the final part is why are they going to get retained? Like, why are they going to stay? Why there is going to be no churn? So if you really look at it, the previous thumb rule that I shared was the first part and the second part. The thinking is that, if you have to just track 2 parameters, then, the first part and the fourth part is the most important. And hopefully if the first part and the fourth part is covered, the second and the third part is also getting covered. If it is not, then it'll be a trouble, right? So these are the 4 parts of a product market fit stage that you have to ask, saying, are customers able to find you? Are you able to win them over alternatives? They make them happy, retain. Sometimes people say, hey, I got to $1 million in revenue. You may still not have product market fit. There, the thinking is that, if you are the pipeline will only happen when you have something that you're offering where people can be happy in a way that is resonating with one audience and one segment, and then one solution that you're making. I mean, if you're solving one part to someone and another part to someone else, and that is different areas, then that again is not product market fit. That may be more like a services that you're doing, right? So this is the definition, and I can tell you from the experience that I've worked with, the odds of getting to product market fit is only about 15%. Right? Only 15 companies out of 100 companies that go into, let's say, building their enterprise B2B application, they get to product market fit. This data that I picked from surveying SaaS companies in 2023, in 2018, and even before in 2014 and 15. The number of companies that get to $1 million, if 100 companies are getting started, number of companies that get to $1 million is only about 15 of them. As it is very, very difficult. But on top of it, we have this Gen AI thing that has come up. Right? As it is, you have to actually find a direction where you are able to move smoothly, and 1 unit of progress becomes 1 unit of effort becomes 10 unit of progress. And now in that terrain, Gen AI has come and created a technology earthquake. Now, then what it means is that, even if you had product market fit, now the question is, do you still have the right direction where still your the effort and the progress are having that 1 to 10 effect, right, in the direction that you're picking. Right. So I'd also say this with an example, every 10 or 15 years, this type of technology earthquake happens. In 2009, 10, similarly with cloud and mobile happened. I know some of you may remember this, but some of you may not. For product market fit, you need to have products which people are absolutely loving. It almost so much that it becomes like addiction and crack, right? And back then there was this product that was even called as Crackberry, but today nobody remembers them. At that time there was it was a $45 billion market cap, but today nobody remembers them because nobody uses BlackBerry anymore, because iPhone and Android came and created the technology earthquake. They had great product market fit, but they did not keep up with the technology earthquake. So they become irrelevant. So product market fit is not like a state that once you have achieved, then after that things are like, you cannot go back, right? And it's not like a trophy or a certificate. Product market fit is that equilibrium, and then like, it is possible that you have it, and it's possible that is not, that you don't have it. So I said product market fit is hard. We talked about the definition of product market fit. Then we said product market fit is hard, and 1 in 15. And now we are talking about technology earthquake, which says that, even if you had product market fit, then, you still may have to ask that question again. So how do you think about it, right? So that's where we come to this, the subject of this session, where we say, how do we think about this in simple phases, like, how do you crawl, walk, and run, right? So that's what the next set of slides are about. Let's first talk about crawl, right? Most of the people will tell you that, coming up with a startup is all about execution. And that is what will distinguish wannabe entrepreneurs and real entrepreneurs. So if you've not quit, if you've not started, then you're not a real entrepreneur. That's what most people will tell you. I think, the sentiment of that statement is correct. But then the better way to think about, like, success of a startup is this formula that I heard from this person called Derek Sivers, who says that, success of a startup is equal to idea into execution. Right. And that multiplier is a good way to think about it. Of course, execution is necessary, right? Execution has to be at least 1 unit, 2 unit, whatever else that is needed to be done. If it is 0, then, nothing is going to happen. But if that execution, if you don't have the right idea becomes the execution multiplier. So most people don't understand that starting idea becomes very, very important, right? And that starting idea is that element of saying, hey, am I going in the right direction? Right? Am I working in the right places? Where 1 unit of my effort is equal to 10 unit of progress, right? So the first thing to think about in the crawl phase is, are you working on the right idea? So like I said earlier, saying if you're climbing the wrong mountain, then speed doesn't matter. I'm going to stop here and see if we are all, any questions so far? I don't like the sound of my voice. All of you guys are on like, video, which is not on. So questions, anyone?
Hi, Rajan. How are you? This is Subbu from TrueTrack. Can you hear me? Hello? Rajan, can you hear me? Yeah. So I have a question.
Yeah, I
Rajan.
got muted. Sorry.
Yeah,
Okay. I can hear you.
As long as you can hear me with my question, it's fine. So
Yeah.
I hope you can see me as well. Hi.
Yes, I can see you. Subbu. Good to see you.
Yeah, good to see you too. So just a question. Sometimes the AI idea morphs, right? So I've seen across, let's say, 25, 30 years, the seed of the idea remains the same, but the tree can grow in different ways, different directions, and it needs to react. And what's this whole idea about? I understand that, look, if you started as a grocery delivery app and become an AI customer experience app, that's a different idea. But if you started at one branch of something and continue in the same market, is that not a good idea? Because sometimes
great question.
That sunk cost fallacy is a bigger thing than we understand.
Fantastic question. So, okay, so that gives me the cue to move on to the rest of the slides. Let's spend time on a few more slides, Subbu, and then I'll come back to you to see if the question is answered right. So let me sort of address that question. Let me actually see your screen again. Right, is my screen visible?
Not yet.
Not yet. Okay. All right. Is it visible now?
Yep.
All right. So great question. So I'll continue, right? So what happens is that when you actually start thinking about how do I even come up with the idea, it becomes very tricky, right? We don't know how to actually think about picking when you have infinite options, right? So for engineers, it becomes easy when we box it into certain boxes, right? And one of the boxes that I find easy when talking from an engineering conversation is saying that, okay, let's talk about tech stack. Right. What is like, this whole AI and this Gen AI thing, what it is bringing is it is saying that the platforms are going to be different, which means that if the underlying platform is going to be different, then practically everything on top from like, outcomes, use cases are all going to sort of change. So let us take infinite into finite boxes. And one way we can think about this finite boxes is through this tech stack of saying there are going to be new applications in practically every domain. And these applications, let them call as Gen AI application tools. So there are going to be new Gen AI applications on the consumer side, on the enterprise side, on horizontals and on verticals and things like that. And you're going to need more tools to build these new tools, right? So how you are building a Gen AI tool is going to be very different than building a web application, then a mobile application, then a desktop application, etc. Now there are application tools, there are builder tools, and there are newer infra and platform. And this new infra is the place where, like, E2E is playing this role, like how Mishika said, as a GPU provider. So that's a infra. So E2E is working on that. But then, like, underneath that, earlier when E2E was working on something like cloud, they were working with different set of underlying building blocks from an infra and a platform perspective. Now they are different building blocks, right? That requires a set of things like the models, the language models, and open source models, and you need to sort of build data operations to set up those models, fine tune those models, and then they are further on the cloud, and then underneath the cloud there is the GPU. Now I will, while all of this is there, I also want to introduce another layer called owning the outcome. Right? We will come and talk about it. So the first question to ask is, where do you pick an idea? Now you can actually put at the topmost area while I'm saying own the outcome. One of the things I feel that this is important to call out as a layer is while this shift is happening, the shift is happening in the context of where people are already dealing with a lot of software tools. Right. So one of the things that software and especially SaaS has done is SaaS has created like a variety of tools, right? The number of tools have mushroomed to a large number. And this is something that I'm talking about on Twitter and LinkedIn is that the conversation I'm having with CIOs, CMOs, CXOs is that, man, there are too many tools that are out there. I don't know if it is still delivering my outcome. And I really care about the outcome. So that is an important layer to call out. And maybe with Gen AI, there is an opportunity to solve the outcome, not as just giving another tool, but seeing, can you make the tool really easily and then give the outcome. And one thing that it does is it actually changes the perspective of even an application, right? Earlier, there will be product application, and then there will be service providers who will either take these applications like an ERP and customize it for customers, right? Now the role between the two can become merged because one, the customer cares about outcomes, and now the cost of developing these application tools are going really, really low. It's like, sometimes maybe 10x, 50x. In the next 2-3 years, we can see that the cost of building those tools, because the programming languages is becoming natural language, the cost of building those tools can even go down 100x. So the whole software market or the SaaS market today, which is $250 billion, can overlap with the services market, which is the bastion of Infosys and Accenture and TCS and others, right? So this is kind of getting merged, and a lot of players are operating in this layer where they are going and talking to customers and saying, oh, you know what, like, dealing with too many tools, there is Gen AI, we will use Gen AI, we will deliver the outcome. Now you can call that as outcome as a service or service as a software. These are names that people are coming up with, and the naming wizard are like working overtime on it. We will find out what the new name for that. But this software and this service is coming together is this one layer in the top that you can operate in, right? The other layer you can still say is that, no, I'm not working on that layer. I'm working on the layer of still building the tools. And there, the paradigm of applications in Gen AI is changing. This is what I like to call as saying you have a prompt and the prompt is delivering, turning into an outcome, right? Now, prompt to outcome. The prompt could be text, the prompt could be voice. The OpenAI announcement yesterday creates the excitement where people are now getting excited about like voice being the input. ChatGPT was all about text, right? You write text, but now prompts can come from voice, or it could be like a photo that you're taking. From there, I'm not going into outputs, you're directly generating outcomes. You're not saying, hey, I'm looking at, okay, can this can I tell a marketer to come up with a campaign, and you are basically telling that the campaign should look like this and that. That's not how you input it to a Gen AI application. You say, I want this poster to be designed. It should have this, this, and that. So the outcome is immediately generated. The role of the designer and the developer is one that of a curator. And he's not saying, putting the building blocks of saying, okay, somebody do the thinking and tell me, then I will actually design it, versus now the entire application can generate the outcome for you. So that's where you can have things like text to 3D, photo to something else. Or you can also look at these applications as some very deep industry vertical, where you take a particular use case and go and solve that by applying AI. One of my favorite example of recent past is this company that's working with the utilities, where what they are doing is this, there are these heavy duty machines. These heavy duty machines, to operate them, you need to have an English understanding, English language education. And somebody finds that the machines are not working, they have to go look up at the English manual. Now, real time, language translation is possible, and understanding deep technical manuals are possible. So can you use an AI to bridge the gap between someone who's only a 10th pass and someone who can operate this? So this company is able to bring in people who are like 10th plus, who understand Hindi, operate a Japanese machine which has an English manual, but still query it, and is able to do it because AI is bridging the gap. And that particular industry vertical is able to solve this now very differently than it was able to do before, right? So you can either build a horizontal tool, which can be different variations of the prompt to outcome, or you could build an application tool. Now, the other area that you can pick and build a tool is on saying, okay, the Gen AI application, they are going to be on different underlying platforms. The monitoring, the application performance improvement, the application testing, how to actually load balance between the application, all the tools that have been built in the last 10, 40 years, they are not going to be immediately relevant for when the underlying platform is different, right? So there are going to be a lot of new builder tools that are going to come up. And then we talked about you can actually build LLMs, and and you can actually say, if you're building from India, you can build a India specific LLM. Even though I am not very excited about this particular category for an Indian founder, because fact of the matter is, at least in the last 15 years, Google of India was Google, and the Facebook of India was Facebook. Unless the government comes and says, no, we are going to build our own platform for sovereignty reasons, people are not going to actually find building platforms very profitable, because it is A, very capital intensive, and B, just the structure of the market is eventually there are only 4 or 5 winners that emerge out of that. Right. So this is at the different layer that you can pick an idea. And I will come back to this stack once again, because if you pick an idea at one particular layer, then it changes the dynamics of how you go to market. It changes the dynamics of your competition set. It changes the dynamics of advantage that you can have as an Indian founder, and it dictates the capital needs that you have to actually succeed in an environment like this. Now, my personal view, we will come back to that slide again, is my personal view is that as an Indian founder, you should focus more on the outcome. You should definitely focus on the application side, because Indian founders are really good at understanding application use cases. They can go deep. I've written a report 2 months ago. I've talked about what type of applications and why, the adoption across these applications will happen over the next couple of years. First will be developer productivity, next will be customer support. The ones on sales and marketing, where there is a revenue impact or the risk of going wrong is very high in terms of brand and a real revenue impact. Those issues will get adopted much later. But you should definitely go and look at the application case. I would actually urge you to consider building the application, the outcome, because that's an area where you can build advantage over rest of the people that are there in the valley. But then let me also talk about 2 more things on the crawl side. One is that you need to staff the right team to actually win in this. Now, when you're building a startup, a visionary sales guy and a designer, right? A builder, visionary, and someone who can sell, right? You need a combination of that. Just like how you put together a cricket team of batsman, bowler, and wicket keeper. And one person can be an all-rounder, but you still need to form a team. For this, you need to staff a good team. But then there are 2 things that I want to call out. One is that you need AI engineers. These AI engineers, I mean, any startup needs engineers. And these AI engineers may be the evolved Python engineers or evolved ML engineers who know how to actually work with the new stack that is getting built up, can develop applications with this new paradigm. I'll talk about that in a second. So those type of changes you have to have adopted to from an engineer perspective. But two things that is most critical is that you need to have a designer. You need to build great experiences, because this shift in this platform, in the shift in this application, people that are going to win are the ones that are able to give great design. So if you don't have a designer, don't even start a startup, right? That is what I would say. I mean, that's how critical a designer is. The second person that I would say is that have a product marketer. A product marketer is someone who can understand how to take your appliances. If you're building an application, I would say that think about this as appliance building. It's like Gen AI is this new electricity, but then you are actually building the next washing machine, microwave ovens, and mixies and things like that, because now a certain amount of electricity and power is possible, right, compared to what was available before. But for you to win in appliances, you need to actually know how to, if you're coming up with a new appliance, then you have to educate the market about it. You have to say, hey, what is it and why it is useful. I made a lot of mistakes in the last couple of months where I would immediately judge an app or an idea of saying, oh, you're just describing it to me in words and this doesn't do you solve a problem? But then unless I immerse myself into the experience, I was not able to understand the impact of the appliance or the application, right? So a product marketer is someone who will help market this type of new appliances where people don't know what they are looking at, what they're looking for, and how they can purchase, right? So that's why product marketers should have the ability to actually tell the story of why the importance of this type of appliance is there, why the old world without the appliances is a terrible world, why the new world with the appliances is a world which is utopia, and things like that. So having these two members in your team, which is designer and product marketing, is going to be critical. The third thing that I would say is that, I don't like the idea of an MVP. What you need to build is a complete tool where user experience is key. People are not going to adopt because you showed an interesting demo. They will still want to have a complete tool, right, when they are buying it. So they would want to do all the things that they were doing before, and this one thing that you're showing that is like magic. But because of magic, they are not going to leave what they had before. And this is a product management issue that you will run into. You can go into small wedges, but build complete tool. Just one wow magic demo is not going to be important. And for people to adopt it, to switch, again, UX is going to be key. The application developer has to actually deal with non-determinism. When you're building these applications, the biggest challenge that people are seeing is the same input, when it is given multiple times, it is not generating the same output. How do you design such application, and how do you manage user experience through such application is going to be very, very critical. So that's a challenge that the entire industry is going through. Finally, what I would say is that, in the crawl phase, right, you pick the idea, you build the team, you build a simple, lovable, complete product, and then you put it out into the market, and then people are using it, and people are using this particular tool over alternates that they have. If the alternates are given by OpenAI or by Microsoft, if they make those announcements and they get disrupted by it, you need to sort of iterate further, right? So this is like navigating an idea maze, right? And in navigating the idea maze, you have to be flexible in going from one place to another. Like, one of the things that I like to say on the infra is that Perplexity started out as text to SQL, right? So arguably it was here, right? It was a builder tool. And then ChatGPT launched, then they became enterprise search, and then they opened up a Slack interface, and that Slack interface took off, and that led them to actually pivot to personal search, right? So they came here, right? So this is a company that started here, but they eventually came here on the consumer side. Now, on the other hand, if we look at a company like Hugging Face, Hugging Face is a company which, if some of you may have seen it, if you are lurkers in Product Hunt, 7 years ago, they launched in Product Hunt as AI Tamagotchi. Tamagotchi means it's like a robot, like, a cute robot, right? Online. And that's what they were trying to build. But that was on the consumer side, right? And one day, one of the founders was fed up with a PyTorch implementation of a certain library. Some other implementation of certain library. He took and created a Python implementation of that, and that caught fire over a weekend, right? And then they started doing more and more of that, and then they went from being like an application company to more on a builder tool and a infra tool type of company, right? So this is an example of them navigating through the idea maze. So you may start somewhere, but based on what is working, you may have to sort of pivot somewhere else. Oh yeah, this is the thing that I would also like to say from a the stage perspective is, at this particular stage, no GPU, no open source models are needed, unless of course your value proposition is based on them. You have to actually think about getting the use case and the direction right in the crawl phase before you can invest in saying, okay, I need to optimize this. I need to scale this thing. I'm going to pause here and see, Subbu, if does this still answer your question?
Yes, it does. I put my camera on to just tell you that it does answer my question. Thank you.
Awesome. Any other question before we go to the next stage? I'd like it to be interactive. Hey, Shubhra. Hey, Mohit. Any questions? Or otherwise, I'll assume you guys
There's
are
actually a
sleeping.
question in the chat box which says,
Okay.
are some product market fit challenges just masked problem fit challenges? Meaning buyers may not acknowledge that there's a problem to be solved. Wrapping a Gen AI or AI layer on top of such a product would take the product nowhere. This is the comment.
Okay, I think I didn't understand the question. So who has the question? Maybe they can explain it.
Santosh Venkatesh.
Santosh, you want to actually explain that question a little bit? Okay, when Santosh, you're able to unmute, then maybe you can pop in the question. I'm going to go forward with the slides. Let's look at the next stage, which is the walk stage, right? So here, what I would say is that despite all of the hype that is there around Gen AI, multiple people conversation that I'm having, right? And I had this feeling in September when I was speaking to a bunch of CXOs, and I still have the same feeling in April, May when I'm speaking to CIOs. We are still very early. One of the things about Gen AI that we are overestimating in the short term, and it'll definitely be underestimated in the long term, right? And this is where a lot of hypes and bubbles type of happen. Real work is happening, but industry is still going through the pilot to production phase. Still, people are figuring out how do we convert POCs and POs into real production, and that's the stage. Now, here in this thing, the most important thing, there are 5 key things that is important for you to actually move from the pilot to production stage, especially from an enterprise context, is that whatever use case you're picking, right, their accuracy of the results is becoming a key parameter for the thing to move from pilot to production. And the second part of this is reliability, that you're giving in some input and the output that is coming in is replicable and reliable, right? And the experience matters a lot. If you're trying to do something, and if let's say there is voice involved, or there is input that is involved, if it is slow, then it actually annoys people. Few weeks ago, there was a lot of Twitter chat about how OpenAI has become very slow, and then yesterday's announcement again created a lot of the excitement back, saying, oh yeah, now things are happening really, really fast, right? So anybody who is working on taking a Gen AI implementation in pilot, the 3 things that they are focusing on is, am I able to get accurate results? Am I getting reliable results? And is the latency really manageable? The 2 things that we already spoke about is that, of course, it needs to be having delightful US, and you have to constantly iterate iterate and like improve this further. So much so to solve the latency problem, to solve like, accuracy problem. A Gen AI application which starts from UX onwards to sort of the application and then some sort of middleware, database, and the cloud infra and the GPU. People are optimizing across each of the layers, saying how do I actually make changes so that accuracy, reliability, latency can be improved. So those 5 parameters is going to be very, very critical. If you are someone who's working on your idea and you found your use case, you found your ICP, you found there are those basic elements of, or you reach out to them and they look at your demo and they are like, okay, let us move forward, and they are trying to get on pilot with you. From there to actually go to production phase, these are the 5 things that are becoming important. One of the things to keep in mind about AI, a lot of people have worked in AI, and people ask this question to me about saying, hey, what's different about Gen AI? If you talk to a technical guy, he will say that Gen AI is generative AI, right? The ability for prediction to happen. You're given one token, and a new token that was not expected is predicted, and that prediction feels like as if it is being generated. But what I would argue, and I would ask you to also think about it this way, is that Gen AI is like a new version of AI. Right? Compared to the traditional version of AI. I worked on AI, back in the dinosaur age, used to handcraft feature vector, solving computer vision problem. In my startup where you'd think about saying, okay, here is some text or data or image, and we are trying to extract feature out of that. And that was the old way of looking at it. Now, the new way of looking at it is AI is available as an API. Earlier, you will think about AI as primitive, saying, okay, we need to have this data and we are doing this translation task and we need to come up with feature vectors, and those feature vectors, we have to actually hand design them and then see how well are they doing. Are they doing 50% well, 60% well? Those are all things that are gone because of this fundamental innovation called the transformer architecture. Now, AI works so well that, practically for many, many use cases, intelligence tasks that you can give, the efficacy of that is at least 80-85%, which means, and like people have taken that and exposed it as API. So as far as a developer is concerned, you just have to use an API. You don't have to build an AI team which comes from a machine learning background, whose job is to actually say that their language translation is working, so that then you can build an application on top. As an application builder, you can just assume that this is available as an API. So that part is what has become important. But still, I would say that it is still not 100%, right? Still, you need to turn that 80% or maybe 85% or 90%. And the important ingredient for turning from 80 to 90% is this data. Typically, a B2B or a SaaS developer would not think about data too much. I would now say that because intelligence becomes important, even if it is something that is not in the application that you are building, it is something adjacent to what you're building, you should go ahead and build and get that data. What I'm saying is that Gen AI moves AI below the API. Now, that is good, but for your AI to become better, you still need data. Therefore, you think about where all you can use data, right? I mean, I talk about this example of MedPipe, one of portfolio company, where they were actually building a SaaS application to sell to HR, later to insurance providers. And they were in no business of going and acquiring data, but that did not stop them going to step ahead and then talking to their insurer who had access to data. They went and built a mobile application, which is a consumer application, ran and operated it for them, because access to that data helps them underwrite this insurance decisions that they are making much better than not having access to that data. So even if it looks like a distraction, you go ahead and find that, do investment into data, get that data, because that data will help you improve the intelligence, therefore help you improve effectiveness of this, and help you move from pilot to production much faster, right? So if there are other places where you can find the data in your domain, go them, acquire them specifically. Great AI apps are, while this change is happening, a lot of the focus and a lot of the conversation in industries is going on the AI, saying how this AI can become much and much better. And people are working on saying, can it be the small models? Can it be the big models? And how can I tune these models, etc. But those that are doing well as businesses, they are doing 10x in AI. They're also doing 10x in UI. I mean, 11 Labs, or like, there are many other examples that are coming out where they are making sure that they're doing a great job of the product as well as the AI. The other thing that I would say in this particular domain is to think about responsible AI. Unlike internet and unlike many other applications, which were like, free market, people were competing in free market. There is a lot of interest and scare and fear that is happening in this sphere of AI, that you have to already quench that fear. Otherwise, like, a lot of regulation can come in, and then it can actually come and hurt your business, because if it gets regulated and you have not already taken that into account, then you will get evicted from the market, right? So even if you don't hire someone who's doing it full time, or at least have some advisor who can help you think through what responsible AI means. I'll go to the last part, which is run. Here, what I would say is that, look, I told you that like, you need to actually pick an initial idea and then get started with that. And then, like, you need to feel that the direction is correct. And then after that, we said we will have to think about all those things which are important from a pilot to production perspective. And now you say that, you're using things regularly on a product, and this is what is working. But then what you are going to also see is a high amount of churn. Right? Even if you're building like, mid-market enterprise type of application, because what is happening right now is that a lot of people are just curious. They want to just try things out. So these are what I'd like to call as tourist customers, right? Companies like Jasper, like all these writing assistants were all very hot a year ago, but now nobody actually talks about them. Some of them have actually even pivoted away. Companies like writer.com and all have pivoted away from building writing assistant, and Jasper is completely silent. And they had a conference last year. There's no conference today. The reason for that is that, like, AI writing assistant was a fantastic, but they are seeing like, 70-80% churn, right? Because like there are customers who came and tried this out, but they are not seeing that this is interesting, that, for them to use it daily, regularly, etc., right? So that is something that you have to keep in mind. So anybody who's like a mid-market or an enterprise developer, you also have to think like how a consumer builder thinks. A consumer builder actually does not go after like a well set defined ICP. They run a lot of experiments, and then they watch the retention curves, and then say that, out of the retention curves is where their ICP gets defined. Their ICP is where the retention curve kind of flattens. They do a cohort analysis of saying, okay, we build something, we put it out there, and then we are seeing, okay, which of these cohorts are going to continue to stay with me for a long period of time. Whichever cohort stays with me is the one that is actually finding value. So they drive their product roadmap based on the cohort of customers that retain. You may have started with the idea of saying, okay, I'm building a writing assistant, but if you're stuck with that and say that, oh, I found my direction, right? You will likely have issues like what these writing assistants are having. And those that are navigating this are the ones that are thinking like this consumer product managers, where they're saying, okay, we will put this out. We will expect customers to be touristy, but then we don't care about the people that are leaving. We care about the people that are staying. Let's understand them and then build the product on top of them, right? So that is a slightly different mindset than how people have typically thought about building product, right? Which is a retention-driven product roadmap. The other thing that is going to be very, very critical is how do you package, how do you position. Gets very adjusted to AI. One thing that I tell everybody is the least that you can do with AI is to actually change and upgrade your marketing. At least it is gonna, like, if you do that, it is gonna create a lot of noise. You need to find a way to actually sift out and stay out of that noise, get differentiated out of the noise. But if you don't do that, then those that are doing that marketing is where the top of the funnel conversation is happening. Right? And here again, the way you do it will be different. You're not doing like saying, oh, I mean, other product has 15 feature set, mine is like, 16 feature set, because that is not going to cut it. You have to do something to get people to come and experience your product really, really quick, right? It is one of those latent needs that are going to be sold here or marketed here. This again, we are in a stage where this entire platform shift is creating a lot of fear, right? Where a lot of users can suddenly feel that they are getting disrupted away. So the challenge of marketing would be that you will be able to convince the buyer, but you'll also have to calm the user. One question that I've been asking for the last 9 months is saying, take prosumer or mid-market or enterprise, what is the GTM that is working? And the number one answer that I'm still getting again and again is that it is influencer. You build a great product, it leads to good word of mouth, and then people sign up. Now, this is the same case whether you are building prosumer or even enterprise. Just few days ago, I was seeing this tweet where a VC was saying enterprise buyers are looking to VCs and influencers to make their purchase decision. Enterprises are not at a stage, and Gartner is also not at a stage where Gartner can put out a magic quadrant and say, okay, this is the one new product category that you should be using or adopting. And because it is very technical, people are placing trust over people that are more technical to understand what choices they need to make. So folks that are very technical, like Andrew NG or Sam, whatever they say, that is what even big enterprises are paying attention to. Right. So in either you should build relationship with them, or you should become one, and word of mouth and the amplification of the word of mouth through newsletters and YouTube videos and Twitter influencers, right? Those are the ones that are actually driving any go-to-market today. You have to build your inbound and content marketing, but that is something that you will do for any B2B company, right? But before that, influencer is going to be the most critical. So I use some Indian examples to map it so that it becomes easy to make sense. A lot of this is Uppekha's company. There are a lot of them are not Uppekha's company, but this is just to actually show where in India different companies are operating at the outcome level, at the horizontal level, at the vertical level, vertical tools, or somebody who's building components which are used by others to build their applications, or builder tools and infra. I should have included E2E here, well, I did not add the cloud layer here, so that's okay. Why I show this is that I want to actually call out the dynamics that I said. Like I said, I'll come back to this structure. So if you think at the software and the services level, the go-to-market, the dominant go-to-market is going to be very similar to how Infosys and other services company built businesses, which is going to be very relationship selling. But then if you're focusing on the software and the services, then you need to have deep integration with the platform. And there the competition is going to be pretty generic, right? So that means that from a business development perspective, you need to be having preferred partnership with OpenAI or Databricks or others, because that's when customers will come to you, or they will ask these platforms, and those platforms should actually recommend you. Capital needed is low. Competition dynamics, everybody will flood the market. So you will have to build a great brand for you to actually stand out and build a large business around this. But if you're building, let's say, a prosumer application, you need to actually bring in a 10x experience delta. And that is what is going to lead people to say, oh, wow, this is fantastic. One of my favorite example I keep repeating again and again, though it's a consumer example, is Suno, right? Suno allows you to generate a song in literally 2 minutes, which takes movie producers and music directors at least 6 weeks and definitely more than 10 lakhs to actually generate, and this can be generated in just 2 minutes. Now, the new song developer will be a curator. He'll generate 100 of songs, and then you will pick one of them, and that is what will become a real hit. Now, if you think about an experience like that in enterprise, where the workflow, the UX compression that has happened, and the entire effort that was made to do that has compressed from multiple weeks to just 2 months, right? That kind of workflow compression is going to happen, and that 10x experience difference is needed. And because of Gen AI, now we can even imagine experiences like this. But if you're working with someone like a mid-market and enterprise, you have to solve the POC pilot to production challenge. First, it will be developer productivity, then later customer support, healthcare, sales training. These are the use cases that I'm seeing that are getting adopted. And then here you'll have to sell the transformation. If you go to the vertical, like the utility example that we discussed, that becomes a lot more easier to sort of focus on and work on. But here, my push would be, if you are working on building on some tools, pick areas where either the incumbent or a Silicon Valley startup is not finding it interesting to go and attack this market. Because otherwise, then you will end up with competition, which is going to be well-funded competition. And trying to battle with them will be like a uphill task. And then again, you will go back and have your product market fit challenge. And here also, I would say that, the needs of the capital is not as low as the first one, but it's high to medium. And it will be very, very high if you are actually going against some of these incumbent. And then on the builder tool, there are two possibilities. One is that you are building builder tools where you give to the developer directly, in which case your bar is GitHub. So that means that, you have to be that good. Not everybody can do it. I'm not saying it is impossible, but just that not everybody can do it. I mean, there are companies like Hasura and Postman that have actually done it from India and have actually reached a global stage and global recognition. But there, the capital needs are very, very high, right? And the bar is very, very high in terms of the standard that the developers expect, right? Now you can say, hey, I'm not directly building productivity tools for end developers. I'm actually building some other tools, builder tools for people that are working in larger organization. There, the decision making is very complex. Who is buying? Who is paying for it? How do you influence the payment? And how do you actually show the value prop to the guy who's paying it? And how do you keep the user who's using it, the developer who's using it? That's a very complicated equation. A lot of people use open source to actually attack it. But open source is a 7+7, 14-year-old game where you have to actually first spend the first 5 to 7 years building great amount of street creds as an open source tool and adoption. And then next 5 to 7 years, and then once you have done that in monetizing, right? There again, like selling to developers is very, very hard. And capital requirements are very, very hard. So depending on which area you pick your idea, the dynamics of GTM, the dynamics of competition, and the resultant dynamics of fundraising actually changes. And that is what you'll have to keep in mind. Yeah, I'm going to pause here. And there are a few more things, but maybe I can bring that based on questions that people come up with. Questions?
Hi, Rajan. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Hi, Brando.
Hi, Rajan. I have a question. So, like you rightly mentioned, competition, right? And finding a product where there is less competition. Uh, I'm having an issue in finding I'm having issue finding some product market fit in a product that I have, because the market that I am in is consists of a lot of old people. I'm in the energy business where a lot of decision makers are, let's say, they're older in age. So trying to get them to see uh, the final target, or trying to get them to see what they can achieve with Gen AI, it's kind of difficult. So where do you think products or ideas where getting people to see that Gen AI is sort of different and would give them more insights, or would give them more than the products that they have already been using? Uh, how can I approach that issue?
Actually, I know very little about the energy industry, but here is how I'm going to think about it, right? One is I'll start with, why did you pick energy industry? Do you have any deep insights there?
Yeah, I've
Right.
been in the energy business for, let's say, 3-4 years. I've been in energy trading. I've been developing and
Okay, so
creating
you
technologies.
have the domain understanding there, right? If you have
Yeah.
the domain understanding there, then I would actually start with what is their fear,
Hmm.
right?
Okay.
And is there any fundamental disruption that AI is gonna create there, right? That's the place that I will start with. The question to ask would be that if the energy industry has taken time to adopt cloud and that has actually not brought in any disruption, then if bringing in Gen AI, is it going to bring in any disruption or not? That will be a key question to ask. Like, what in the industry is changing because of Gen AI
Mm-hmm.
or because of AI? I'll tell you a simple example that I saw yesterday is that industries where that were focused on a lot of data and knowledge, they were selling knowledge.
Yeah.
That gets fundamentally disrupted. There is this company called Chegg. which was helping school students do homeworks better,
Yeah.
right? And because of now ChatGPT, they are like, completely destroyed, right? Now, if you can sell a product to Chegg will buy any product that you sell to them, right? So you go and sell any. So that would be one question to ask in energy, like what is getting disrupted, right?
Yeah.
Because people are not going to act and do things differently if they don't have a fear of, fear of death, right? Fear of disruption, fear of not being around. That is what drives people to actually make changes. If you have to educate them that, yeah, this is good for you, that is very difficult, right? They have to already know that, they are going to get disrupted. Otherwise, that may be an industry that you should come back to later, even though if you have experience in this. And so I'm finding it hard to think on, like in energy, what's getting disrupted. I don't know enough about that industry. But those are the set of questions that I would ask.
It's an old industry, you're right in that. Also there's the constant you're right, in industries that old there are products and tools that are already in that space, so you are always in the constant threat of being cannibalized or having your idea, because those tools already have the capital and everything that they need to sort of take what you have done and make it their own. So that threat is always there. But yeah, it is something that there are a lot of areas of disruption, like ESG reporting. There are a lot of things that you must have heard of. There are a lot of things that can be solved there. But yeah, I see what you mean. Thank you for
Yeah.
thank you.
Any other questions?
Yeah, I have one. Hello, am I audible?
Yeah, Rohit.
Yeah, so it's regarding just one example you cited in the slide, where you show BR21 or Suno. You gave an example of music creation app. So similarly now, since if I'm a developer who is developing similar tool from India, so obviously now when I have tried these apps, Suno, but when I'm trying to give them some prompts related to say some particular regional or ethnic music from say some particular region from India, the output isn't that great. So there I see some kind of new product can be developed. But how do you see defensibility of such products going forward? Means, as you said, that the competition from SF area is far ahead. So how do you proceed with defensibility that I am able to develop some sort of moat around that?
Okay, I have written another blog post. I didn't cover this here. See, most people who ask the defensibility question, they don't know anything about defensibility question. A lot of times it actually comes from investors. But if you're asking it as a founder, then it's a good question to ask, saying, hey, is this an idea where I have to be, or will I get completely disrupted, or like my effort will go waste, right? That would be like a good question to ask. And a related question that is asked is that, hey, am I building a thin wrapper? Can I, what will happen to me on this, right? So I have multiple perspectives on this. See, first of all, an early stage idea, no early stage idea has any moat. And I'll share that. I'll put that link also, for you to read. I think, it was around maybe I was talking about like an investor, but maybe I should just write on moat itself separately. There are 4 types of moats, right? One is a moat that you get because you get some licenses because of regulation, right? You have to open a bar, then you have to get a license, right? And those that have the license can open the bar, run the business, but those that don't cannot actually do it. And the cost of doing that, if you have to actually run a telecom business, then you have to have the Spectrum license. That type of modes are very, very defensible, right? Then there are modes which are very scale and brand. There are the scale dependent modes, right? Once or network effects or scale, right? Where because you have become so big, for somebody else to come and become that big, this is going to take years and years, and then you have that advantage. Walmart has that. Companies like Facebook has a network effect mode, and then Walmart has mode because they are so big that because of their size, they can dictate pricing power to their suppliers, and then they can extract more from the supplier, and then pass on as discount that a small retailer cannot do. Then there is brand mode, right? And brand mode, if you really think about the brand mode like Coke or any other brand. In fact, what I believe is in software, especially in B2B software, it's usually the brand mode that is there, right? Where people have built a great brand, and whenever people are thinking about one particular application, only this name comes in to memory. That could be because of the advertisement or storytelling that they have done. That could be because of the great product experience that they have built, that everybody is going to say, hey, I use Linear for for my startup. It could be because of that, or it could be because of any other reason. Mostly what happens is that the more consumer it is because of the great storytelling and the ad that they put out in the market is the reason that you kind of build brand. That's why you see Coke, even though Coke is such a commodity product, Nike is such a commodity product, now people are not able to disrupt it because it has great brand. Then the final thing that I would say is that there are element which doesn't change. One question to ask in moat is, what are the things that are not going to change? If you actually see certain behavior and experiences the certain experience that people have, the certain behavior people that they have, they don't change. It is very difficult to get a guy who is using Slack to use Microsoft Teams and vice versa, because he's very used to that particular user experience. So for me, from a applications and a software founder perspective, I like to ask the question of, what are those things that are not going to change, and can we build moat around that? In case of Gen AI applications, people are talking about having access to data, using the data to train something proprietary, and that proprietary access to data is what they're calling as moat, which I'm not fully convinced of. I am of the view that if you are able to provide like a 10x experience, and if that is an experience that people like using, and this is 10x better than what it was before, right? And this is the one that makes people switch and retain. Then for people to switch away from this, the other 10x is needed. I would argue that somebody who's building like a gap for Suno has to actually build a 10x better experience than Suno, right? So that is when people will switch away from Suno to this particular new app. Right. So,
Okay.
and I don't know, I can't immediately think of what will it take to do that. And this journey, it also has to happen over a period of time. All the things that I talked about moat, startups can't figure out, they cannot think about this on day one when you're coming. Only when you're building the business over a period of time is where the moat gets built.
Fine. Just one question over this. That since you have this experience of here, Valley, so how is it disrupting here in the entertainment industry, particularly say Hollywood, or have you come across any Gen AI application which is actually helping up in the movie industry or music? Obviously, you have shared Suno, but any particular related to Hollywood or something?
So
Just
early
any
to tell,
example.
I mean, two things that people are talking about is the, I'm sure you have heard of Runway ML. Right, so Runway ML is coming
Yeah.
across this new suite of tools that a lot of studios are using. The other one is OpenAI itself is going very enterprise focused. They are talking to a lot of studios, and then they're not releasing their Sora directly to customers, because to do Sora is insanely expensive, right? So to do text to video, the amount of compute power that will go into text to video is very expensive. So apparently OpenAI is taking a very enterprisey approach of going and talking to studios and taking their video tools to them. Other than that, I have not heard much.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions? Rohit, this is the link that I was talking about where I talk about modes a little more. Mhm. All right, so let me actually cover a few more slides, and then if there are questions, then we will take them. Otherwise, we can wrap up early as well. These are a few more observations that I had made. Like, especially when you're thinking about from a product market fit perspective, right? So the product market fit, one of the most important thing in a founder to actually, especially for first time founders, is that you have to manage your psychology. What is happening in the field of AI is that every 6 months there is like, a 10x jump. Right? Most people who are trying to do fine tuning of models, they find that, oh man, like, by the time I do fine tuning of a model, there's completely different new model is coming out. So that is rendering it completely ineffective or useless, right? So that's the kind of pace that is happening. In general itself, like, going through a startup journey is a very difficult trek. But here it is even more because the pace of change is like further like faster than anything else that we have witnessed before. Now in this, you have to actually manage your own psychology. You have to manage things along with your co-founders. One of the things that I have found that kills a lot of startups is that founders don't get along together, right? So there's this company that I was working with 11 months ago, and they did all the things right on crawl walk part, right? Then, like, when I met them a couple of months ago, I was asking, how's it going? Only thing that I told them is, hey, you're doing all of this, then just move to the cradle of AI in Valley. And like one of them apparently did, but then he said, this person that I spoke to, he said, no, he's not working on it anymore. And I asked why. He said, my co-founder wanted to go in this direction and I wanted to go in that direction. So being aligned, not only do you have to actually deal with this fast-paced change, but you also have to be aligned with your team, right? So managing your strategy, spending time on that becomes even more important than like, if we're building like a normal product which did not have the Gen AI earthquake. I've already talked about this. Pivot is a feature, not a bug. I told you that starting idea is important. I lied. Your starting idea will go through at least 3 pivots. Like I gave you the example of Perplexity, where was text to SQL, and where is like answer engine, which is completely different vision, completely different layer, completely different stack. You have to give yourself at least 3 pivots like this. Especially one thing that the Silicon Valley companies are good at is pivoting really fast. What they look at is growth rate, right? If things are not growing with respect to customers, right, then they like pivot away from the idea that they were working on. One of the things that first-time founders actually struggle with, and many people will even talk about pivot using the physics definition of pivot. Oh, pivot means it has to be around a direction. Yeah, it has to be around a vision. I would actually say no, right? Most of the pivot should be hard, right? You should actually build, but then you have to pivot hard, especially if things are not working. Let's say you started with this alternate idea, and then you were coming up with this one small difference that were there. You try to get some adoption. Adoption is not coming. The growth rate is really not fast. Then I think you should drop it and maybe not do anything in the music industry and do something else. In the energy industry, you came up with this idea. You worked on there for 4 years. You tried to build this. And then you build something, you showed people that, hey, here is a 10x experience, 10x difference that you can bring in. Spoke to 100 people, like, saw that, like, 200 people, like, after you spoke to them, did not use it, pivot away from that, right? And that's a little hard, but that is what you want to actually do. And it is a feature of early stage startup. And okay, so just to sort of back up and summarize what we spoke so far, you want to think about the PMF journey in 3 phases: crawl, walk, run. In the first phase, picking an idea is very important. Getting a team with designer and product marketer who can build these new appliances and educate people about these new appliances that are possible on top of Gen AI, and like delight them is very, very important. It is going to be iterative. You will start somewhere, but you will eventually land somewhere else, and you have to be flexible as a founder to navigate that path of that idea maze. But once you feel that you have a conviction, you feel that the direction is growing really, really strong, then to make sure that this is working really well and people can get truly delighted. Keep just focus on accuracy, reliability, and latency. To improve that experiences, you get your own data. Keep a lookout for regulation. They can come shut you down. So make sure that you are not checkmated there. In the run part, you have to, that you have gotten conviction, but remember that, this has to be thought of as a retention-driven product roadmap. Messaging is key, packaging is key. We are repeating it again here in the run phase, which we talked about in the crawl phase. GTMs are going to be very influencer-driven, and pivot hard if you have to, and not really worry about, oh, I started here and I shouldn't be pivoting away from my vision. At least give yourselves 3 iterations, right, for you to actually find PMF. All right, so with that, I'll stop the session and go and see if there are any questions, and ask Mishika to.
Yeah. Hi, Rajan. I have one question. I'm Sachin.
Yeah, hi, Sachin.
Hi. We are into low-code platform.
Okay.
I want to understand your perspective on this, how GenAI is going to disrupt or impact the low-code platforms and the market.
Tell me more about low code. Can you tell me this as a comparison to any other product? Like, are you like software? Are you like drap code? Who, what
we,
type of?
We are currently into the process automation. But yeah, we are on the track
Zapier?
to
Zapier or
Kissflow, I can say.
Okay.
Okay. Or
Right.
we are Kissflow has only the process engine or workflow engine. We do have the app builder engine also, like Appian. Appian is a great product. They have been into market for a long time, but we are on the track of that. But our go-to market is quite different. So yeah, I want to understand how.
Yeah. So one thing I would say, now get it now. So one thing I would say is that, look, from a long-term perspective, you have to be very, very careful, right? Because the place where the disruption is happening the highest today is in developer tools.
Okay.
Including the changes that were put out yesterday, right? What I'm hearing people say is that CIOs, CAIOs, right? They actually want people to use a no-code GenAI tool and replace existing SaaS budgets that they have. Right? That is what I'm hearing people say. In the long term, if you are not in the long term, the vision that people are painting out is saying there's a lot of automated coding that will happen. Now, it's not happening today. Today, like when people are using GitHub Copilot, it is probably bringing in 30% productivity, maybe stretch it 50% productivity.
Yeah.
The expectation is that in 2 to 3 years, it will bring in 2 to 3x productivity, right? To a place where people will be like, oh, we can imagine a situation or a scenario like Jarvis where we will ask them to code a tool and then they will do it. But any developer who's actually used ChatGPT or GitHub, they know that, oh, you can the code generation is fast, but but the code debugging is where the rest of the time almost gets spent. So it is not there yet, right? Where the vision of saying, okay, an agent can completely write the code that you want, the tool that you want, it is not there yet. What I would say is that, like, if you are building some sort of no-code tool, positioning it as a tool that CIOs can use and for specific use cases, and recreate and replace their, here are 3 SaaS tools that they can replace. If you position that way, there is good demand for that.
Okay.
Right. But over the long-term period, maybe all no codes will get disrupted with people saying, oh, natural language is the programming language. If natural language is the programming language, then the interface for any no-code tool is voice and text, right? And the voice is now really good. That's what OpenAI demonstrated yesterday. Now, that is a long-term vision. That is like 5 years maybe, right? Where you just speak it out and then code and will get written an application. Today, is it possible? Maybe not. Even Devin doesn't do it. But today, if you ask me, there are CAIOs who are saying, hey guys, we're just dealing with too many tools. Let us remove the SaaS tools that we had. Let us find people or SIs, and then let's work with them. And then I want to actually find that tool which can help me cut my reliance on the SaaS, which was not imaginable, but is happening. So can you position there and play that market would be a place that I would look at.
Okay. Yeah. Many reports from the Forrester and Gartner saying this. There is a new kind of app gen platforms are also coming up.
Right. I'm not sure about Forrester, but I've heard this from CXOs that I have spoken to.
Okay.
Any other questions, Mishika?
I'm not in the chat box, so I think there are no more questions. So I would like to thank you for this insightful session. All of us learned something today, including me. And a huge round of applause for everyone who joined us today and participated so actively. This was a really engaging session and we hope you liked it. And this is why we would love to hear your feedback on the session. I have just shared a link in the chat box where you can give us your inputs. Your responses are very important to us because they'll help us improve our future webinars. So please fill the form to let us know what you think about today's session.